Welcome to Poland Daily History with me, Nicholas Richardson. One of the exciting things about studying history is, of course, differing historians' interpretations of what history means. And that's perfectly legitimate. What I think is illegitimate is an attempt to rewrite the basic historical facts. And that is the subject of today's series of programmes. And I'm joined in the studio by Stefan Tompson, and we're going to talk about the attempt by the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, to rewrite history, to suggest that Poland, in fact, was responsible for the outbreak of the Second World War. Stefan, thank you for joining us. This seems to me an extraordinary attempt by Putin to rewrite facts which are clearly self-evident and well known to the world at large. I mean, what did Putin actually say?
There's actually quite a wide array of statements made by the Russian president, but I think some of the most outrageous ones include the fact that he suggested that the Poles had lost control of the country and therefore needed to be invaded, which I think in a sense, if it weren't so tragic, is really rather amusing as a statement to make. Other statements included accusing the Polish ambassador to Berlin of anti-Semitism, calling him an anti-Semitic pig. Then referring to current-day Poles as anti-Semites by saying that people of Lipski's, the ambassador's ilk, today are removing memorials to the Red Army, which, according to him, liberated and freed Central and Eastern Europe and defeated Nazi Germany. Other statements included also I'm actually lost in the amount of statements that have been made. Some of them were made by the Deputy Speaker of the State Duma, Vyacheslav Volodin. Others were made by Minister Lavrov, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and others were made by various accounts of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Twitter. Well, I'm actually slightly. It's difficult to actually quote him now word for word.
Yes, of course.
But the broad effect was indeed that basically Poland had it coming, deserved to be invaded. That the Soviets didn't really invade because Nazi Germany had already defeated them. And all of these statements, one after another, are just not true. And they are all revisionist, and they're all Stalinist propaganda, and they're a very worrying trend in Russian politics of whitewashing Stalinist crimes, of whitewashing communism, and of rewriting the history of the Second World War. And the crux of the issue seems to be that for Russia, the idea that they by themselves defeated Nazi Germany is a sort of founding block of their identity and of their state.
Yes, in the Great Patriotic War, so-called. Mm-hmm. But I mean, let's look at the key facts. The key facts are on the 1st of September, 1939, Germany invaded Poland, and Poland was fighting to try and defeat Germany. Mm-hmm. On the 17th of September 1939, on the eastern border, without any warning, Russia, or the Soviet Union as it then was, invaded Poland. I mean, those facts are not in dispute. And that was in pursuance, of course, to the secret protocol to the Ribbentrop-Molotov mm-hmm. Pact. So it seems to me incredible that Putin would think that nobody knew this, and that somehow this invasion, which was a military invasion, could be anything other than an invasion.
Yeah. I mean, the other rather amusing thing is his accusation of everyone else having signed a non-aggression pact and suggesting that all the other non-aggression pacts also contained secret protocols. I think there's a sort of slightly amusing element of Russians and Russian officials and Russian elites, political leaders, judging others according to their own metrics, you know, of assuming that everyone would have done the same thing and everyone would have signed these secret protocols. But yes, as you say, Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact, secret protocol, effectively the fourth partition of Poland. And I mean, it is important to note that on the 17th of September, when the Soviet Russians invade, Poland was actually still fighting.
Yes, that's a good point.
And the battle wasn't in their favor, they hadn't completely and utterly lost control, and there was a contingency plan, and that contingency plan was to evacuate to the Romanian bridgehead, a sort of elevated position to withdraw all the troops there, rally there, and try and hold out until Western forces could form a counterattack. And it's the Soviet invasion which rattles these plans and which forces them out from the Romania, through the Romanian bridgehead, into Romania and into exile. And had that invasion not happened, who knows how the Second World War.
But I think the point is that seems to be one of the key planks of the Russian argument is that this state had ceased to exist, though this benevolent Soviet Red Army had to come in and restore some form of order and look after people. And of course, the state had not ceased to exist. The Polish army was not at that point defeated, but what really destroyed any chance of a better solution was the very fact of the invasion.
Yeah, precisely. And the fact that the Poles actually fought them all along the border. I mean, the Polish Border Corps engaged with the Russians in numerous battles, and they did fight. They actively fought the Soviets, and in fact, in a few battles, the Soviets were even defeated by Polish forces, which suggests this idea of this benevolent entry into Polish territory being completely false.
And of course, the idea of expect benevolence from Stalin, of course, is rather strange when, if we go back to put this in context, if you look from the 1933 onwards, I mean, those parts of Ukraine, and particularly Ukraine, and sort of the Western Belarus, Stalin had, spent his time starving the people into submission, essentially. So the idea that this was benevolent force is somebody you'd welcome is about as welcome as the fox being invited into the hen house to sort of restore order. If you'd agree with that analysis.
No, I absolutely agree with that analysis. The Holodomor, the Great Hunger in Ukraine, I mean, the killing of about 4 to 5 million Ukrainians during that time. And not only that, also the Polish operation of the NKVD in 1937, which saw about 111,000 Poles in the Soviet Union be targeted and purposefully killed. There's numerous crimes of Stalinist crimes that precede the Second World War that indicate exactly the nature of the Soviet regime and the nature of things to come in occupied Poland. And that's precisely what happened in occupied Poland. The Stalinist forces unleashed communist terror. They unleashed the NKVD. They deported upwards of 1 million Poles in 4 waves between 1939 and 1941. They imprisoned 500,000 Poles. 1 in every 10 adult males was imprisoned.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands of people were summarily executed. And most shockingly of all, in 1940, in April of 1940, about 22,000 top Polish army officers, intellectual elites, political leaders, and intelligentsia members were taken to Katyń, Kharków, Miedź, and Bykownia.
That's a good starting point. We'll look at that in a bit later, but thank you, Stefan, for this segment.
Thank you very much.
That's the first part of our programme. Join us for the second part when we look at these issues in more detail.